Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Every Rocky Ever, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, a Rockies affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. And I'm your host, Skylar Timmons, joined here as always by my older brother, Dustin, and we're back in action once again here. How are things going with school and everything, Dustin?
We're back to the grind in the heat, letting it finish out, and high school soccer's in full swing, and just watching. Actually, trying not to watch the Colorado Rockies as much.
It's a rough goings of it at this point in the season. But that's why we're here. We're here to talk about past Rockies, and we have a special episode in this one with the recent news within the last couple weeks of original Rocky Alex Cole passing away. We thought it'd be good to kind of go back and look at some of these guys who were that have passed away, former Rockies, and kind of look back on their careers and talk about them here. But before we do that, Dustin, I actually have a little giveaway noticed here for the Fans First Sports Network, the company that makes this podcast possible. They're giving away, since NFL season is right around the corner, we're giving away 4 free tickets to a Week 1 NFL game of your choice, a value up to $5,000 here, courtesy of Fans First Sports Network. And the rules to enter are simple. Simply go to contest.fansfirstsports.com. Again, that's contest.fansfirstsports.com, and fill out the appropriate information there. Once you do that, you're automatically and officially registered to win the 4 free tickets to any Week 1 NFL game. Awesome opportunity here for sports fans, and a awesome giveaway here from Fans First Sports, where we're continually growing, and an awesome opportunity there. So be sure to go in and check that out. Enter in. Maybe able to go watch your NFL team of your choice for Week 1, which is pretty exciting. And we're not the biggest football fans in our family, but are the Broncos going to be any good this year, Dustin?
Well, it can't be any worse than last year. So hopefully they can score some touchdowns. Holy cow!
Yes.
Stay healthy and score touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Let's ride. So contest.fansfirstsports.com. Be sure to check that out, and you can be entered into the contest to win 4 free tickets to the Week 1 NFL game of your choice. Let's get into it. And I think first, Dustin, we'll go ahead and start with the original Rocky from 1993, the starting center fielder for the Colorado Rockies, one Alex Cole. And we'll go ahead and have you run down his career real quick, Dustin, the breakdown on Alex Cole.
All right. Alex Cole, center fielder, batting left, throwing left, from North Carolina. He was originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 11th round of the 1984 draft. And then again, drafted by the Cardinals in the 2nd round of the 85 draft. And he ended up making his major league debut in 1990, and as a member of the Cleveland Indians. And he would play with the Colorado Rockies for that 93 season, as you said, the starting center fielder for that inaugural season. And he played until 1996. So over his career, he had 3 years in Cleveland, 2 years in Minnesota, the 1 year in Colorado. He spent the year before that with Pittsburgh, and he also spent a year with Boston during his career. And he, as you said before, passed away here in August of 2023.
Yeah, so 7-year big league career, and looking at his numbers, just a nice little solid career for Alex Cole. Looking at his time with Cleveland and Minnesota, he put up some good years in a big league uniform across those 7 years.
Yeah, and I only that's a long time ago in '93, 30 years ago, but he was that guy, right behind Eric Young Sr. And um, looking at his stats, uh, had a couple of really, some good years, some solid numbers, but I remember him as that speedster,
Mhm.
um, getting those stolen bases and looking at his career, 148 stolen bases, in it in all of his numbers, that season he had the one season with Cleveland in '91 where he played in 122 games. The '92 season he was up at 145 games at the big league level, or with Cleveland and Pittsburgh, 105 games. And then he gets to Colorado as the starting center field of this brand new team, playing at Mile High Stadium, and he got into 126 games, 30 stolen bases, and solid year to cover all that. In the outfield dirt of Mile High Stadium with the football field in there too, and
Mhm.
Alex Cole. Some of these older Rockies are these guys that didn't play for very long or the 1 year, just a few games. Uh, it's we're not going to spend all this time talking about all these memories, but of Alex Cole, I'll tell you my one memory of him is in the deck of the inaugural season, the deck of cards. I've got my Alex Cole. I put them all in like their order of things, and there he is. If it wasn't
Rocky.
stored away in the garage, I would have had it to show the
Mhm.
YouTube viewers.
Yeah, I'll have to have you pull out some of those sometime. But no, you looking at the pictures of him, his signature thing was those sweet, glasses that he was wearing, those awesome specs that he was wearing, which just screamed '90s baseball. But it's just such a clean signature look for Alex Cole. You could tell the guy had some style,
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of cool looking more further into his splits. He hit pretty well on the road in that inaugural season. Had an on base percentage of 365 on the road, as opposed to a 315 on base at home that season in '93. So he was spectacular hitting on the road, getting on base, swiping bags. He had about the same amount of swipes there at home and away. Didn't strike out a lot, drew walks here and there. So a high contact guy, get on base. And it's pretty cool for, yeah, again, wasn't the superstar, but a nice solid little career for himself. Just a speedster, get on base, come around to score and help the team out. And I'm looking at his jersey numbers, wore number 5 for the Rockies, a number that went on to be connected with some other more high profile players, but an awesome legacy there with the very first Rocky to wear number 5, Alex Cole.
yep, and, he's in those. He's in the books in that special spot.
And in case anyone's wondering how he did in his Rockies debut in their very first game, April 5th, he went over 3 with a walk. So not too shabby. And then he slowly progressed from there. But that's how he did in his first game for the Rockies. But yeah, it's solid career for Alex Cole. And it's interesting that he didn't get to stick around further after that '93 season. But no, he was got to be there on the ground floor, and that entire '93 group had a big shoes to fill, a tough task of bringing baseball to Colorado, and the record didn't turn out very well, but from what it sounds like, the experience for all those players and everybody involved was pretty special. But unfortunately, so we do extend our condolences to him and his or to his family, his loved ones, and definitely a tough time. Sometimes they take him too soon, but he did a lot of good in his life, and where our thoughts go out to his family during this difficult time. And Rockies fans, it's important to go back and look at these guys. Remember, especially the roots of the team, and Alex Cole was one of those guys. So we move on now to our next player here. We'll go with this next one. Let's pick up with Joe Kennedy, the left-handed pitcher for the Colorado Rockies. And this one, it had some cool stuff in his career, some notable things with the Rockies. And I'll have Dustin now do the rundown here on Joe Kennedy.
All right. Joe Kennedy, pitcher, batted right, but threw left. He was from California, born in 1979, and he passed away in 2007, really unexpectedly and really early at he was only 28.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and I remember anytime I think of Joe Kennedy, my first thoughts Tampa Bay Devil Rays.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted in the 8th round of the 1998 draft out of Grossmont College there in El Cajon, California. He made his major league debut in 2001 as a member of the Rays, and he was traded to the Rockies in the 2004 and played for him that year. And he went to Colorado and then was traded to Oakland and played there for a couple of years. Went a real quick stop with the Arizona Diamondbacks and then another real quick stop in Toronto. He ended up playing his last Major League Baseball game in 2007 as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. While he's with the Rockies, he was number 37.
Mm-hmm. And spent those 2 seasons, 2004, 2005. So some pretty lean years for the Rockies. But 2004, a very notable season for him that we can talk about here. With 2004, he became the first Rockies starter to have a sub-4 ERA in the history of the team thus far. So 10-year-old club, first time a starting pitcher had a lower than a 4 ERA, which is wild to think about with a baseball team.
Yeah, that's and for me, this 2004, 2005, and halfway through 2006, I wasn't in the country at the time. I was in Peru, and so I do remember Joe Kennedy. If I'm not, wasn't he the was he the opening day starter? I don't know if he was, but I remember Joe Kennedy coming over to the Rockies and thinking, this guy's, he's had some, he had, those Devil Ray teams were terrible to start off with, but he had he had good build, he had some good stuff. So I remember, yeah, throw them in there and see what they can do. And this is pre-humidor days, starting into it. But I do remember, Dan O'Dowd comes in and he starts wheeling and dealing players all the time. And it seemed at the time, with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, it was always something. I remember when Vinny Castilla got sent away, and we had Rolando Araujo and stuff from the Devil Rays. So the Rockies, in part of this 3-team trade, I always like those ones. They're really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockies sent Justin Spire, a reliever, to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays later sent Sandy Nin, minor leaguer, to the Rockies, and Toronto sent Mark Hendrickson to the Rays. And so that's how we got him. And it was just quick, year and a half, season and a half. And then the Rockies traded Joe Kennedy and Jay Whitesick to the Oakland A's for one Eric Burns and Omar Quintanilla. So, that was one of those. That was one of those trades when I came home, finished being in Peru, and I came back and like catching up on all that I missed. I was like, Eric Burns was a Rocky. Oh, what the heck?
And Joe Kennedy was the opening day starter in 2005. So after
Okay.
that strong 2004 season, it's come back and looking to be kind of that anchor at the top of that rotation, and unfortunately didn't pan out too well there in that 2005 season. But still made 16 starts, posted a 7.04 ERA in 92 innings, and just really struggled with his command. 52 strikeouts to 44 walks, was getting hit hard, 12 home runs. Now, really improved things when he went to Oakland there in 2005. But that 2004 season only went 9-7. So you can always put whatever stock you want to in win-loss record. But a 3.66 ERA, one of his best seasons of his career. Made 27 starts, 162 innings, 112 strikeouts to 67 walks, 12 intentional walks. So just a really flash in the pan showing what solid contributing success could be for a Rockies pitcher at Coors Field. And that's about the time when the humidor was starting to come in or so. So showing, hey, 3.66 ERA, you'd take a whole rotation of that in Colorado and you'd get it
Definitely.
done. And even looking more at kind of that advanced pitching of his career, it's not, there's different ways to be successful at Coors Field, but in that 2004 season, 47% ground balls, solid production where teams were having trouble. They hit opponents at 265 against him, weak contact, wasn't giving up a lot of hits, and gave teams an opportunity to win. So solid dude, solid pitcher, at least for that 1 year. And then things kind of struggled after that. But I think like you mentioned, it's stinks to see a guy's career kind of cut short, kind of suddenly, and that he wasn't able to continue on because who knows, at 28 years old, he still had several years of baseball left in him probably, and it's just it's sad to see that a career's cut short all of so suddenly. I think those are always the tough ones in baseball history when you think of guys like Jose Fernandez or a lot of other guys across the league that just pass away suddenly, in the midst of their career.
Yeah, that's a sad one. With these with a few of these Rockies that we're covering tonight is they were things that you know undetected heart condition, or something, and it just happens, and it's always sad, and it seems like the Rockies there, with um, they had, was it McGregor,
Mm-hmm.
the that happened around somewhere around that same time ish. The news of Joe Kennedy and some other players, and it's it's very sad that their careers were cut short, and their families and stuff that one day we're here, and then we're not. So then
Mm-hmm.
we're here, remembering them, and in those in that little spotlight that there were as part of our Rockies culture, or Rockies teams. Uh, and it's really cool about Joe Kennedy, about that 2004 season. And that's a big deal for an ERA to be under 4. Uh, any type of pitcher in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado to do that, and he's actually one of those names for uh, the immaculate grid that I like to pop up in there
Mm-hmm.
is and I just remember, like I said before, just his build. He looked like he could have gone played middle linebacker for an NFL team.
Mm-hmm. Just a big, kind
That's
of blocky, thick dude.
yes.
And No, from this, we've mentioned this story before, but Brad Hop has shared this on Twitter. Uh, Back when I originally posted about Joe Kennedy, and we mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's good to say it again. But this is from Brad Hop. When one of his memories said, "My first road trip in the bigs, we went to Montreal. I had workout shoes I wore to the field, and he got worn out by coaches and vets for not having dress shoes. For some reason, he didn't know why. Next day, Joe Kennedy bought him dress shoes. He was league minimum player taking a rookie shopping. He was a great teammate, lost way too early. Rest in peace, Joe." So it's those kind of stories. We can always talk about the stats and all this. Oh yeah, he didn't, may not have had one good season, or he had a really good season. But to hear stuff from that from guys that played with him, have those memories and just kind of see who they were as a person and thinking of others and helping a guy out. Those are the cool things to hear about with these players, and especially thank Brad Hop for sharing that. But it's a really cool thing. He's getting worn out, helps him out, and buys him some shoes, which is really cool.
Well, that's what's awesome there is Brad Hop would later on, in his little career with the Rockies, was like superstar for us, and how he says there, Joe Kennedy wasn't any superstar, the a minimum rate, kind of contract player, and he took the time, and that's what we love to hear, are these stories of the person. We get wrapped around the stats and this, that, and the other, but it's these things that we hear about the person. What does he do? How was he outside of baseball, or the kind of person that he was? And that's an awesome story that Brad was able to share. That I think is so awesome. I'm sure there's probably more stories out there of that type. Grabbing that rookie and be like, "Hey, man, I got you. This is how it is." Because we've all been there. Of you go somewhere and you're completely clueless on how the culture is and how this is correct and this is expected. And there's times where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So it's awesome to hear stories like that, hear about these guys as people, and super awesome dude. It sounds like was a good teammate, and again, yeah, who just lost way too early, kind of suddenly, but for that 2004 season, etched his name in the Rockies history books, and showed you can be successful at Coors Field. It's possible, which is pretty cool to see. Anything else that you have on Joe Kennedy?
Nope. I think we're good.
I will say he did have one complete game as well in his Rockies career, which those are always fun stats. We never get into them too much, but it's always fun to see guys that throw out complete games because it's so rare nowadays.
Yep.
But that's Joe Kennedy. Lost way too soon, but a solid guy, solid pitcher. And again, send out our thoughts to all the families in this. I was talking about that we are celebrating these guys. They have a spot in Rockies history. But our next one that we wanted to move on to, he had a little bit longer stint with the Rockies, and that's Angel Echeverria, who played with the Rockies for a few years in Colorado, a lot through the 90s, and he has an interesting history in his journey with the Rockies, and we'll get into here. And so, Dustin, you can take it away here for Angel Echeverria.
All right, Angel Echeverria, and this is what I always thought of him as: pinch hitter. And he also played outfield, first base, batted right, threw right. He was born in 1971 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he passed away in 2020, also in Connecticut. He was drafted by the Rockies in the 17th round of the 1992 draft out of Rutgers. He made his major league debut in July 15th, 1996, as a member of the Colorado Rockies. And he played for the Rockies from 96 until the 2000 season, and then went over to the Brewers and then the Chicago Cubs. His last major league appearance was in 2002 um, with the Rockies. He started out with number 11, and then was number 39 as he finished out his career there with the Rockies.
So pretty solid. And interestingly enough, Dustin, his career as a Rocky technically started in 1995 as a replacement player during the players strike, and so he played in the second of two exhibition games at Coors Field, the christened Coors Field, the first professional games at Coors Field. Angel Echeverria played in those, which is wild to think about. The most time baseball, nobody will talk about those replacement players, but it happened, and so he almost
crazy times.
Almost started his career as a replacement player in 1995 for the Colorado Rockies, which is crazy to think about. And we'll get into this stuff, but like you mentioned, the pinch hitter, and oddly enough, I can pull on my notes here. Oh, we've talked about John Vanderwall. We've talked about Seth Smith. Talked about Jason Giambi, some legendary pinch hitters for the Rockies. But Angel Echeverria, pretty good himself. During the 1999 season, he tied for the National League lead in pinch hit home runs with 4. It tied a franchise record. He led the league with 14 pinch hit RBIs and was 6th with a .319 average as a pinch hitter. So, solid guy coming off the bench. And you think of the name Angel Echeverria, the name itself just doesn't sound like the type of production you'd get out of a guy coming off the bench.
But man, he was, I just remember listening a lot of my experience of the early Rockies, up to when we had, satellite TV or whatever, and we could actually watch the games. It was listening to it on the radio, and he was another one, Angel Echeverria, the big guy coming in off the bench, putting good swings on, and it's crazy looking at those numbers. It was in 96, a 286 average. Then he dipped off to a 250, then a 379. Of course, that was only in 33 plate appearerances in 19 games, and he almost batted 400 in that limited time. And then that 99 season of 293. And then the 2000 years, kind of a rough one. When he was with Milwaukee, he was there at 256, but then he finished out with Chicago with the Cubs at a 306. So in his 7 years as a major leaguer, a 280 average, and coming with a lot of that time being a pinch hitter, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming in as a 6'4", 215-pound guy.
He was a beast, man. He's just a big old dude. And I think being in an intimidator at the plate and just putting the bat on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I say that all the time. Even when I coach, just put the ball in play, put the bat on the ball, and good things will happen.
Mm-hmm. And looking at his career, so he has a batting average on balls in play. So this is basically any ball that's put into the play of field, and so it takes out strikeouts and home runs from like your batting average and stats and stuff, and those at bats, and then compiles everything else, balls that are hit into the play of field. Had a career 308 batting average on balls in play. And specifically in 1999, he had a 308. 98, he had that 400 batting average on balls in play. So when he was putting the bat on the ball, good things were definitely happening for Angel Echeverria. And he dealt with ground balls like everybody else does, but he was ripping line drives and had a good mix of fly balls, a good batted ball profile where he's hitting it to all fields, hitting it in all different ways, and getting on base.
and he had turned out a solid, a short solid career uh, with those three clubs, but he was drafted in the 17th round of that 92 draft, so the Rockies' first draft, and so there was not a whole lot riding on him,
Hmm.
and that's where it came up about being one of the replacement players. He wasn't one of these big hyped up prospects. He was one of those guys filling out the roster,
Hmm.
um, and he ended up making a good mark in his career with the Rockies.
Yeah, and so speaking of that 95 season, so it was during the 94 strike that cut the previous season short, early, canceled the rest of that season, and they were working towards things, but still is kind of getting down to the wire where the season was about to get close to starting. And so clubs were looking for replacement players, and they were trying to stay away from the top prospects in the organization so they wouldn't, sparing them the wrath of the players' union. But prospects like Echeverria, who was kind of fringy, not a lot riding on him, those became recruiting priorities, and uh, kind of tough situation for guys like Echeverria and a lot of players where they're crossing that picket line, so to speak, but for good reasons in a way. And I think a big part of that, I found one article talking about how the money that came with being a replacement player was important to Echeverria, who used the funds to keep his mother in her house in Bridgeport's inner city. Uh, so he was doing it for the right reasons because, yeah, guys like that, those plus they need the money. They couldn't afford, especially then, couldn't afford to not be playing, to not be getting paid, and be getting paid a little bit more to be a replacement player was probably really enticing. But it came with some things where the replacement players were barred from the union, and when the union chief made his annual visit to the spring training camps, or ever to the camps to meet with the Rockies players, Echeverria was declined entry to the meeting house or to the meeting in the Rockies clubhouse in High Corbett Field in Tucson, Arizona. He retreated to the Rockies dugout along first base and sat by himself, a forlorn figure, is how the article that I read quoted it. And so, a tough situation, and he ended up playing one game in the exhibitions at Coors Field. I think he got a hit. It was against the Yankees, and the team won both games against the Yankees. But a tough situation having to navigate that in 1994, 1995.
Jeez, it's crazy to think. Remembering those times where baseball just shut down, and it's always when there's the work stoppage and the strikes. It's, oh man, and then getting whoever to play. It's like, yeah, we want baseball, but then you're like, oh man, we want to see the stars.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Angel Echeverria, after playing in the majors, he went over to the Japanese Pacific League just for the year or two, and played a little bit. Well, in the '93, uh, in the 2003 season, and uh, he also um, participated for Puerto Rico in their national team a little bit. And he was another one that you know was everything was good. Um, when he passed away, yeah, from the reports, he was fighting a stomach virus for a while, and then slipped and fell and hit his head, and that's um, how we lost Angel Echeverria, and that was in 2020, so not too long ago, and he was still a big part of the community there in Bridgeport, and still, from everything, all these articles that I was reading about him, is just a good guy, that was caring, uh, kept in touch with people, that were important to him, throughout his career. It really talked about one of his buddies from Rutgers that, out of nowhere, he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And being there as a friend for these people in the story about his mom's house and things. Again, that's bigger than baseball. The
Hmm.
people the people that are playing, and Angel Echeverria, he was one of those.
Hmm. Most definitely. Um, Another one of those guys that carved out a nice little career for himself, and did all those great things behind the scenes, and then contributed some cool things while on the field and in Rockies history. And all these guys have etched their names in one way or another into Rockies history and made an impact in one way or another. So, just a really cool thing, career for him. And uh, again, just kind of those sad ways to lose him. Kind of all of a sudden type of thing. But solid career for Angel Echeverria, and a big dude, fearsome guy at the plate, and a gentle giant, if you will, from from everything that we've read and kind of talked about. But now we'll move on to yet another one here, another pitcher here for the Rockies, one Daryl Kyle, who one of the more notable names that they've had in their history of free agent signings and acquisitions. And we'll go now for his career breakdown of one Daryl Kyle.
Daryl Kyle, right-handed pitcher, born in 1968 in Garden Grove, California. He passed away in 2002 at the age of 33. He was originally drafted by the Houston Astros in the 30th round of the '87 draft, um, out of uh, out of college. He made his major league debut as a member of the Houston Astros in 1991, and he played his last game June 18th, 2002, while he was a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. But he came over to Colorado as as you said, in a you know big free agent signing in 1997. He had some really good years with the Houston Astros, and then signed as a free agent with the Rockies, and that only lasted for 2 seasons. When the Rockies then traded him with Luther Hackman and Dave Veers to the Cardinals for Manny Avar, Brent Butler, Rick Crushore, and Jose Jimenez. He then played, uh, those next 3 seasons, 3.5 seasons with the Cardinals. When he was with the Rockies, he was number 57. Throughout his whole career, he was number 57. He was a three-time All-Star, uh, with the Astros, and one time um, with the Cardinals as soon as he left Colorado, and he ended
Hmm.
up winning 20 games.
Hmm. Yeah, and uh, won't beat around the bush. He struggled in Colorado, and it was
Oh,
kind of like so many pitchers then pitching in the mile high air during that time didn't pan out too well for anybody. And so, uh, part of the Rockies strategy of that time of trying to bring in a good, free agent signing who's had a history of success. It just didn't translate to pitching at Coors there in 98 and 99, where unfortunately he led the league in losses in 98, though he did lead the league in games started with 35. So look at his career. Yeah, he struggled, but dude was a workhorse in
oh
Colorado.
yeah, he ate up the innings. 230 innings pitched in that '98 season. Are you kidding me? That's a grind. That's a grinder right there. Yeah, he lost 17 games, but he also won 13 games.
Hmm.
That's something that, that's impressive. Um, the thing about Daryl Kyle that I always remember, when he was with Houston, he was known for that curveball. It was a tight 12 sixer, boom, the hammer. And so everybody, bring him to Colorado and he'll be able to figure it out. But sadly, we see pitchers come into Coors. Clayton Kershaw doesn't have an issue because it's just boom. But in that time, that early '90s, the late, that late 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of pitches would they just couldn't find that spin, that grip to have all the success that they had before. And that was part of the problem is with the Rockies in those years of, all right, we're going to spend some good money. Okay, this isn't the we got the the Hampton deal or the Denny Nagel deal. This Daryl Kyle one was like, all right, we're not paying hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're getting a solid guy. And I think in those 2 years, yes, he wasn't an all-star. Did he, you know, his ERA was 520 to 660. But looking at that innings pitched, 421 innings pitched in those 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give for Rocky starter in 2023 to to eat up those kind of innings.
Mm-hmm. Looking at things, and was one really like top moment for him in that 98 season pitching wise. And this is courtesy of Noah Yingling. And this is an old article over on Rockspile website, but it was Daryl Kyle's gem that he threw in 1998 near the end of the season against the Florida Marlins at the time. He only gave up one hit entering the ninth inning, a bunt single in the third, and then in the ninth inning he gave up a leadoff triple to Dunwoody, and Edgar Renteria got an RBI ground out to score him, but that was the only run that the Marlins would get. Rockies had scored 3 runs, and so by the end of it, his final line score looked 9 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts on 110 pitches. So there were probably glimpses throughout that time with the Rockies where he would show those glimpses of why they signed him, and instances like that. And reading another article, who's remembering Daryl Kyle, one of baseball's good guys, where he never made excuses for the struggles at Coors Field or pitching in Colorado. Owned up to the mistakes, and just always appreciate when guys aren't shirking away to make excuses, but they own up to it. Like, yeah, I need to pitch better. I need to do those things. And he was that type of guy, and was never one to make excuses for his own struggles, and just I'm sure wanted to tackle that challenge at Coors Field and figure it out to help the team and help his teammates.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned this, I think, in our last episode when we talked about all the Jamies, how Jamie Wright had commented about the influence that Daryl Kyle had on him. As Jamie Wright became a major leaguer up with the Rockies, and Daryl Kyle was there during that time to mentor him and make a very positive impact on him as a young player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of tough for him with him passing away just suddenly in his hotel, and they canceled the game, I believe, the next day. Just kind of out of respect to it's just kind of the shock of it. And
yeah,
it was
he had just pitched 4 days earlier. He's
Mhm.
getting pretty close to his his spot in the rotation again, and the once again the heart.
Mhm. And it was thing that it's touching that that his buddy Joe Girardi, another former Rocky, was kind of one to break the news and announce kind of what was going on. Was the one to kind of announce what was going on to the fans and everybody. No, but a tough moment there for a good friend of his in Joe Girardi, and a tough situation. Just kind of that shock all of a sudden. Same with some of these guys that just kind of suddenly lost too soon, because Daryl Kyle was having a fantastic resurgence when he went to St. Louis, changed the scenery, and immediately helps them lead them to an NL championship. And then just to kind of just suddenly, all of a sudden, he's gone. is a really tough thing. And I know Rockies fans, I think just recently they finally issued his number again, I believe to Tommy Doyle, current Rocky, because they were holding off until the Cardinals finally put it back into circulation, and then the Rockies did it as well because they just had so much respect for Darryl Kyle and his contributions, and just kind of out of his memory and respect for it. And so it took them quite a while until they finally put that number back into circulation, which was kind of cool to think about. Those are things you don't think about. Like, yeah, I've never thought of a guy wearing 57 or whatever, but now it's back in rotation because they finally reissued it, and they were waiting until somebody kind of broke that ice.
Yeah, but and Darryl Kyle, that my memories of him is that just grinding, and like you said, his accountability. And he's like, yeah, I knew it'd be tough, so, coming here to Colorado. I'm up for the challenge, and it didn't pan out like everybody hoped it would, but still respectable time with the Rockies. It was cool to see as he went to the Cardinals a resurgence. That next year he was an all-star and back to really helping them out. And the last thing that I always think of Darryl Kyle, I just loved his last name, the Kyle, spelled Kile.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best friends, his name's Kyle, but just the normal Kyle spelling. So I was thinking, if I ever had to give a name, in respect to my buddy, to put Kyle to their name, middle name, or anything, but I would spell it Darryl Kyle way.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, again, like we said, wasn't the best Rockies career, but still didn't tarnish his entire history. It was more of the Coors Field beasts, like all those pitchers. They just couldn't conquer it there in the 90s. But still a solid pitcher. And you could see why the Rockies wanted to sign him. And he showed that when he went to the Cardinals and everything. But again, another one of those guys, a solid overall career, a really solid career that just ended too abruptly and came to an end too soon for Darryl Kyle. But before we end here, Dustin, we can add on one more here that we had found in one Mario Encarnacion. Didn't have a long career with the Rockies, but was a Rocky nonetheless for 20 games in one season, and he also passed away in 2005. But we'll have you do his quick career breakdown here.
And this is a surprise. I know the Rockies have had an Encarnacion, and I just didn't realize who it was. Mario Encarnacion. He was left fielder, batter right, threw right. Was born in 1975 from the Dominican Republic, and he passed away in 2005 while in Taiwan. He made his major league debut with the Rockies in 2001, and he played that season, and then he went on to play in 2002 with the Chicago Cubs. His last major league game was in 2002. That first month of the 2002 season. With the Rockies, he was number 44, and he then went on to play overseas and have really a good career. But he was he was involved in some a lot of little things, transactions. He was originally signed by the Oakland Athletics in 1994 as a free agent, and then traded by the Athletics, Blitz, and Jose Ortiz to the Rockies for Jermaine Dye. And that's one that people don't realize, that Jermaine Dye, his name was with the Rockies. Then he got, in 2002, selected off of waivers. Then he kind of tried to bounce around Expos, Cardinals, and then went overseas.
And just played in those 20 games with the Rockies. in 2001 near the end of the season after an injury to Mark Little. And he comes up, walked in his first 2 plate appearances with the Rockies against the Milwaukee Brewers, was a staple in that outfield with Larry Walker and Juan Pierre through the end of that season in the outfield. And 226, 284, 242 slash line for his time with the Rockies. That's 67 plate appearances, had 14 hits, 3 runs scored, 1 double, 3 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 14 strikeouts, and 5 walks in his time. So a really short-lived career, but he got to be a big leaguer, even if it was just for a short time, and got to play in an outfield with 2 Rockies legends, 2 notable names for Rockies history. And in that 2001 season, got to spend time with the Rockies organization.
Yeah, and that's giving a shout out. He made it to the big leagues, and to be in that outfield with those guys and those players, an awesome experience. Like I was saying before, like I said before, after that, even then there was kind of some, oops, we're verifying some age, and you're a little older than what you are. But then he went overseas and uh, played in the Southern Korean baseball league, went over to the Chinese professional baseball league, and had some really good success for those few years while he was playing overseas.
Seeing here, and passed away just kind of suddenly, again out there in Taiwan, and found him in his hotel, and it kind of one of those tough things. Just kind of all of a sudden it happens. That I like to see here. One of the things I found that in 2006, the Sacramento River Cats and the Sacramento Bee writer Marcos Breton established the Mario Encarnacion and Humanitarian Award, which is given annually to athletes who inspire others through their story, lead by example, and are role models to others. So another one of those guys where he didn't have the longest baseball career in the majors, didn't have a ton of success, but his stuff off the field was really impactful and carried even more weight than what he was able to do on the diamond.
Yeah, and that, I think that really sums up these 4 individuals that we talked about here. Of as Rockies, they didn't have the all-star success, but I really think that all of them were all-star characters, all-star people that made a positive impact to those around them, and they give us some of those baseball moments, but more than anything, those good human being moments.
Yeah, and as we sum it up with all these 5 players, and it's that we wanted to talk about tonight. Again, our condolences and thoughts go out to their families. And hopefully they know that these guys have left a lasting impact even on fans and the other people that they came into contact in their lives. We view them as baseball players, as fans, and that's sometimes all they are to us, as we just think of them as baseball players. But so we've seen with all 5 of these, there were more than that. So much more than just baseball players. They're much more than the stats on the back of the baseball card. But they're just good, solid human beings. Like you said, all-star human beings, all-star characters. And so in terms of Rockies fans, it's good to always remember them and remember the people behind the numbers on the back of the jersey. Remember the names on the back and what a lot of these guys stood for and what they're able to accomplish in their lives and in their careers. But I think that's going to do it here for this edition of Every Rocky Ever. As always, we appreciate you tuning in with us and chatting along. And we'll continue to try and get some more engagement over there on Twitter and figure out who else we need to talk to, get some more people on here. Hopefully get some more guests, trying to cook those up, see if we can get squared away, whether it's just me here with them, or we'll try to get Dustin here with them too. But whoever we can get, we'd love to have any former players on, former coaches, all that good stuff, reporters that we're working on. But let us know on Twitter. You can follow us at Every Rocky Ever. It's Every EVERY ROCKIEVER. On Twitter, you can also follow at Rocky ROCKY MTN Rooftop on Twitter. And you can follow me at sideline_crowd. And we've also got Dustin's at Mr. T Spanish. He's not as active on there, but you can always go find him on the on the TikToks. Is there more can kicking into trash can content coming?
Well, we're getting back into the swing of things, getting kids back ready for back into the school routines, but we need behaviors to level out before they get to receive some trick shots and whatnot. So we can't go right out of the bat, woo, you gotta work hard, play hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I'm still not into shape kicking form yet. New shoes, it just got to figure out the trajectory. Got to think of some more, better things. Got to get some baseball technique put in there to some different trick shots. So we're cooking some stuff up.
We'll get there. Same here as well on Every Rocky Ever. And again, a reminder, fans, if you want to win 4 free tickets to a Week 1 NFL game of your choice, go to contest.fansfirstsports.com to fill out the appropriate information and be officially entered into that contest to win. The contest ends on September 4th. Dustin, as always, appreciate you hopping on. It's always fun talking about Rockies players as we continue to go through the history of the team. Again, let us know what players you'd like us to talk about. Share your memories of guys and everything. We're here for you to celebrate these guys together here, especially after 30 years of Rockies baseball. I'm Skylar. That's Dustin. We'll see you next time. Farewell.
Adios.